I've heard you say in several of your interviews that your family members fought the police all the time. What prompted those altercations, though?
Well, I remember when I was between like 9 and 13 years of age, my cousin that we call her Bap, but her name was Christine McBurrows. And they arrested her for what crime she committed, I don't know. But they arrested her and put in the backseat of the cruiser. And when they put in the backseat of the cruiser, my whole family started fighting with the cops. They spraying them with water hose and beating them with water hose and everything else, man. I mean, it was a mayhem. And I'm saying, why are they fighting with the police? Why are they beating up on the police? The police are good people. Because I remember when I was about 8 or 9 years of age, how when they came to my home after my mom and dad done plunged knives into each other's body, and they had butcher knives back in those days with the brown handle and the long steel blade, and of course they put me aside, and they said, come here, little man. And they was teaching, I guess, pulling me away from the agony and the ordeal that just took place. And they began to tell me about the gun, the handcuff, the blackjack back then, because they had the 2 leather straps with the steel at the end. And
Steel ball at the end. Yeah, I remember
yes.
those.
And of course, I remember that, and I said if I didn't play professional football, then I would go into law enforcement to make a difference. And that's what inspired me to really go into law enforcement.
Tell me about your father's attitude towards law enforcement.
He hated cops.
Why? As far as you could tell.
He always had a run-in with the law. Every time, Daddy always had a run-in with the law. There was time that my dad, he carried a Chrome 32 with a pearl handle, and he kept it in the glove compartment. And he used to always tell me how if a cop came to his window, how he would blow his brains out. And I'm saying to myself, this is crazy, man. When you as a young kid, this is what your dad said about the cops. But every time they came to my house, there was like 4 or 5 carloads of cops for my father. And there was only one guy that I remember, Mr. Leon Foster from the Inner River County Sheriff Department, was one of the main ones that used to actually come along with the other cops, because that's the only person that could really calm my father down. My dad was the kind of person, my mom would tell you, that man was straight vicious, man. Daddy was really nasty, he didn't, anybody that know me, my wife would tell you how my cousin, they talk about my father right now to this day, how they was afraid to even come to my house, Ever since I was 6 years of age, I've been fighting. My dad bought me a sock and bock'em, where it was a ball that had a string, and every time you hit it, it go a different direction. And it got to the point where my dad used to tell me, if you don't touch it, I'm gonna touch you, And of course, my hand became so efficient, man, that I'm constantly, every which way it went, I'm popping it, And my cousin used to say, no, man, I'm not going over Uncle Raymond's house. Uncle Raymond crazy, man. That man done lost his mind, And my wife, she's sitting right here, she'll tell you. I mean, they talk about it all the time, man, and they was afraid to even come to my house and stay with us, man, because Dad would punch you in your chest. You cannot grow up and act like you some freaking punk or faggot, he is not that kind of dude, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he was old school,
relate. That's interesting. That's really interesting, man. I want to touch back on that in a minute, but like why after seeing that as you saw that as a child and hearing him say, somebody you were close to, somebody whom you knew enough about his personal life to know, what degree of interaction he'd had with law enforcement, to be so adamant about harming any random one that happened to pull him over. It's like, did that not have an effect on your idea of what kind of experiences you might encounter, just to know that this, if I pull somebody over or whatever, or just come across somebody just in my uniform, they might just say, I hate cops, and shoot me. That didn't play into your decision?
No, it really motivated me to actually want to become a cop, because I just remember how they came to my house when I was 8 or 9 years of age, and how they put me aside and they embraced me. You know, there's a lot of great men and women that wears a uniform, that put the uniform on each and every day, to make a difference, that serve the community. And these people put their lives on the line every single day, man, but you got these freaking clandestine that wear these uniforms that think that they can belittle and degrade people. Those are the main ones, that should not be in a uniform. And I tell them to their face they shouldn't be in a uniform. Your job is not to belittle, degrade anybody. Your job is to inspire people and to help them and teach them what's right and what's wrong, Not for you to formulate an opinion about an individual. That doesn't do anything for you. And to be honest with you, that was not me. That was not me, my brother. And you're going to hear me even speak about the fact that I've had, since the interviews that I've done with Mark Later and Matthew Cox and Daniel Jones, man, and now on Vlad TV, I've had individuals that have called me and that saw my video. I'm talking about guys that I had arrested or even that came through the system that have reached out to me personally and said, no, man, Deputy Hicks, man, one of them was Kevin. Another one of them is G. Fresh. We call him Gas and Akins. Antonio Smith. I could just, Nicholas Howell. I could just go on with the list, my brother. These people have called me and said, man, you was one of the best. I changed my life around because of you. And you're going to hear me speak about, the impact of the lives that I've actually made, man, throughout my tenure, at the Broward Sheriff Office. And before I begin to go through these different trials and tribulations, which is adversity, man. But adversity builds character, it makes you stronger. So I always said that, I would go into law enforcement to make a difference. And my father learned that not every cop is the same. And how did he learn that? It was through me. Because other individuals that actually came in contact with my dad, when he came in and out the jails and the prisons, they said, man, your son is one of the best, man. And he knew then. So my dad, before he passed away, he actually wanted to see me in uniform.
That's heavy. He wanted to see you in uniform. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. So he was still having bouts and doing stints when you were on the job. Was he ever incarcerated in any place that you worked?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he came through the main jail.
While you were working there?
Yeah, he came through the main jail. He came through the main jail when I was working at the jail. And it was actually for some weapon that Dad had, and I think they say he may have pointed at someone or whatnot. Yeah, so he came through the main jail. And that's when my dad began to learn from my coworkers, other inmates, that, hey, man, your son is one of the best, man. Deputy Hicks is a good deputy, man.
Yeah, that must have made him very proud. I finished your book, I'm Still Standing, a couple of days ago, and I've watched several of your interviews. It's obvious to me that you're an empath and that you care deeply for others. Did your caring nature make it being in law enforcement more or less difficult?
It did not make it difficult for me. It actually made it better for me because, I come from the hood. I'm from the gutter, you know what I mean? And I wanted to let those inmates know, I didn't care if they was black, white, or Hispanic, purple, green, or orange. I'd tell them, hey, man, I love you, man. And I used to have deputies tell me, why would you tell an inmate that you love him? I said, because I do love him. They bleed the same color blood that I do. You can't formulate an opinion about a person that's incarcerated. That's not what your job is. Your job is to remain professional and to inspire these people. Say, hey, man, you can make a difference. You can change a life. Well, I've done that, my brother. As a matter of fact, one of the brothers that I grew up with, we call him G. Fresh. His name is Gaston Akins. And G was constantly coming in and out the system. He's selling drugs, he robbing and doing all this crazy stuff. He had a shootout with the former sheriff, Scott Israel, when Scott was a regular patrolman for the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. And I say, gee, every time you turn around, man, the recidivism rate is constantly growing by a vast number. You need to change your life, man. What about your wife and kids? Man, I'm trying to make it. I said, well, what do you mean trying to make it, G? I said, you in here, so who's taking care of your family now? You definitely not taking care of them. Well, man, you was one of the ones that made it out the hood. I said, so can you. Well, let me just inform you that brother, man, after going to prison 2 or 3 times, he made a decision to actually take on a trade, which was operating a backhoe. And he got a job working in construction, and he actually became a foreman of installed construction. And his sons worked out with the Miami Dolphins, Jonathan Akins. His other son worked out with Jacksonville Jaguars. His name is Marquise Aiken. And right now, when I came home from being incarcerated, he even stopped my wife. When I was incarcerated, he stopped my wife. And she didn't even know who he was. And he says, Miss Hicks, my name is Gaston Aiken. They call me G Fresh. Here's $40. Send it to my man so he can put it in his commissary account. You know, tell Big Hicks, man, this is from me. When I came home, my brother, guess who gave me a job? He gave me a job working with installed construction when he was a foreman. He became my boss. I was putting down sewer ladders and water services, making $9 an hour, bringing home $250 a week. And he became my boss. And then he went on to become a superintendent. Now he owned his own construction company. So, you know, people can change, man. You know, it's just like I'm looking at you, my brother, and listen to you, you know, from the beginning, how you spoke about how you was in the street, how your family was in, you know, into so much criminal mischief and activity and whatnot. But through it all, you know, God had a purpose for you. And that purpose is to be who you are right now. That's why God took you and elevated you to the level where you are, so you can conduct these type of interviews, because guess what? No one can pull blinders over your eyes. If I'm sitting here and I'm telling you a lie, you're gonna sense it right off the rip. So to be honest with you, you know, I truly thank God for this opportunity, man, that Vlad TV and yourself and the other team has given me, because my story is fascinating, man. It's been 21 years now since I've been talking about me and my wife and kids being tormented by the Broward Sheriff Office for crimes I never committed. But one thing is for sure, I still love law enforcement. To this day, I still love law enforcement, because there's a lot of great men and women that put that uniform on each and every day. They took something from me that I loved. I didn't like it.
I get it. I get it. I mean, they subjected you to something that you did not warrant and hadn't been walking a path towards, and to be subjected to something like that out of the blue, the level of unfairness that, you know, that imposes upon you, man, is just, it can really turn somebody the wrong way, and you endured it and didn't let it, you know, make you a lesser person. And that is pretty remarkable.
Well, I can tell you, my brother, you know, I thank God every day, because, you know, these people, man, they so nasty. And these individuals that did what they did to me, as I will explain to you, you know, in detail, you know, they sent me death threats, you know, said I'll be lying in my room in a pot of blood. I went and bought an AK with 180 rounds. I told my mom, you might as well go get your black dress, man. She say, son, don't do this, man. I said, Mom, these people want to kill me. They want to take my whole family out, man. You know? And, but through it all, man, I look up, you know, I took that gun back, you know, and it's just amazing to me. Like you said, if you're not a strong person spiritually, physically, mentally, what you're going to hear me speak about today will literally destroy a person. I wouldn't wish a fraction of what I've gone through on my worst enemy, man.